Could there be a Babylon 5 reboot, remake, but without the original creator, J. Michael Straczynski? Apparently, Warner Brothers are considering it. Welcome to the Tachyon Pulse podcast.
Our Tachyon pulse has been unable to completely penetrate the anomaly.
So, well over a year ago now, J. Michael Straczynski actually did drop that he'd written a script for a Babylon 5 remake reboot, and that script had been sent out there by his team, by Warner Brothers, for streaming services to consider. Now, at the time, I dropped a video basically saying that there had been 4 or 5 streaming providers interested, and that during the strikes they had expressed an interest to Warner Brothers. I actually dropped first that look, the CW weren't going to be picking it up. I dropped that about 18 months before that, and about a year before that I dropped that actually Warner Brothers weren't going to make it for themselves, i.e. weren't going to make it for Max. Instead, what they wanted to do was produce the Babylon 5 remake, but for somebody else. Now, I heard rumours that Amazon were actually quite interested in this, and they wanted to put it on Freevee. But at some point after that, they actually changed their business strategy regarding Freevee. They decided instead of having a separate channel that would have adverts, that they would actually just move things across to Amazon Prime, and that they would put adverts on Amazon Prime following Netflix's lead. Now, putting adverts on there did work. They scrapped Freevee. I hear that was pretty much the end of their interest in the Babylon 5 remake. I'm told that sort of like Disney and Peacock said no virtually immediately, and Warner Brothers did try to push for maybe a smaller provider. I actually hear Roku were in conversations at one point. I don't really know what that means. I don't really understand the Roku network or what it is, but that's what I was told. So, that's now been a year. As I said, I dropped a video at the time, and J. Michael Straczynski was very unhappy with me and called me a bad name for dropping this video. But I was told that, look, the major providers aren't going ahead with this, and they weren't going to be picking it up. And obviously, 12 months later, I told you so. But apparently, Warner Brothers have not completely dropped the idea. But before I tell you what they're thinking now, I'll tell you why I was told streaming providers weren't interested in doing a Babylon 5 remake. Basically, what I'm told is that a lot of the feedback from the studios that did consider this, like Amazon, etc., was that they weren't sure about doing a remake, and the only reason they were even considering it was because the original creator was on board. Now, the point is, we've seen remakes like this before, and I think it's fair to say that really only the Battlestar Galactica remake, maybe Lost in Space, have actually been successful. And to be fair, you could argue that Battlestar Galactica, the first season and definitely the miniseries, were phenomenally good. But it didn't quite have the legs. And by the end of the run, and then obviously when we got sort of like attempts at doing more, was it Blood and Chrome or something? We got attempts at doing sort of spin-offs. They didn't work. And actually attempts to reboot Battlestar Galactica recently have hit a brick wall as well. It is very true that audiences are switched off by remakes. They don't like them. And if you're going to do a remake, you've really got to wait until enough time has gone by that you're almost onto the next generation sort of thing of fans. And that, yes, okay, people get excited because they remembered the show, but there has to be a purpose behind the remake. For example, the Battlestar Galactica remaking a show from all those years ago, they threw in modern CGI. They completely changed a lot of the story. They modernised it in some ways, but they actually add a lot more depth to the story in others. It was worth doing because of that they took something that was brilliant, but they made it way, way better. Now, I'm hoping that's basically what they're going to do with a Highlander remake, in that they're going to take a brilliant original movie that got ruined by sequels, but add a lot more depth to it, put a lot more meat on those bones, and make it a little bit more logical in some ways, but then adding modern CGI and stuff, and getting if they cast it right. They need to catch the Kurgan. They need to cast Ramirez right. I don't know who's been cast for that yet. But Amazon have now taken on the Highlander movie, so let's see what they do with it. But my point here is that studios have now finally wised up to this, and they know that fans don't like remakes. Now, as I said, they were interested in this because J. Michael Straczynski was the one that was going to be behind it. But they all said fans are not going to go for this. The hardcore fans that love Babylon 5 are not going to like the idea of a remake, and check my comments on previous videos, it's definitely true. And actually, Babylon 5 as a whole, even though it's a cult classic and has a very devout hardcore fan base, is the worst project on the planet to actually try to do this with, because it's a cult classic with a hardcore fan base. And Amazon in particular know what happens if you take a cult classic or, something that's really, really beloved, Lord of the Rings, and don't do it very well. If you turn the hardcore fans against that project, it really goes badly, and you can't go back on that. So why am I hearing that Warner Brothers might be interested in doing this, but without J. Michael Straczynski? Now, I have to be very clear here. One, rumour. So I'm hearing it through a couple of different people, and you get Chinese whispers, you get, people with agendas talking to me. So take this with a pinch of salt. Two, I think this is just them considering an option. They have a franchise that they own that actually does very well for them still. When they showed Babylon 5 on HBO Max recently, for example, they got really, really good numbers. And the animated movie they did not long ago, The Road Home, as well, did very well. They made money. They like making money. And Warner Brothers don't necessarily want to make things for Max or whatever. Their sort of business strategy moving forward is we've got vast studio spaces. Let's make stuff for other people and not really have a lot of risk. Because, if Amazon pay them to produce a movie, they get a fee. If the movie does great, they don't make any more money. Fair enough. But if the film bombs, they don't lose money. So it's a safe bet and will allow them to, pay off a little bit of their debt. Where it comes to Babylon 5, they just may be at a point where they're thinking we need to, or at very least should we, consider doing something that's completely different and not including J. Michael Straczynski in that, and actually having completely fresh blood, fresh ideas. Now, apparently, Warner Brothers do own the IP. They can do what they want with Babylon 5, and J. Michael Straczynski doesn't own any element of it. That's what I'm told. Again, they would have to involve J. Michael Straczynski in some way, is my understanding. But if they own the copyright, J. Michael Straczynski couldn't stop it, if that makes sense. Is my understanding, but again, pinch of salt. When you start having these things, when there's an IP, it can be complicated when you've got the original creator as well. That it's not always a clear-cut black and white thing. So, look, there may be lawyers getting involved. But my understanding is that you could give J. Michael Straczynski sort of like a consultancy role or an executive producer role, but not push to the... And to be fair, if he then declines that offer, Warner Brothers doesn't mean it would kill the project, basically. So, I'm being told that Warner Brothers are considering this. I'm being told that they are even going as far as maybe talking to a couple of people about whether they might want to do it. But it wasn't that long ago I was told that actually the Babylon 5 project with J. Michael Straczynski wasn't completely dead. So, is this just them considering options? Is this just an element of Chinese whispers? I'm not sure. If I'm going to tell you exactly what I believe, I think Warner Brothers would like to do something on Babylon 5. They want somebody else to pay for it. I've always believed that. Would they get involved with J. Michael Straczynski again, and would they bring him in? I think they would have liked to. I think the argument there was that the original creator will take a lot of the wind out of the sails of the people shouting, oh, bloody another remake. So I can see why they wanted to do that. But if it hasn't worked, I could see Warner Brothers thinking about, well, can we do something else with this franchise? It's a possibility. And at the end of the day, if they were to announce something and get it on our screens, there would be interest. And that is the first problem for anybody producing a new show, is to create interest. So let's see what happens. I'm really thinking that, okay, they might try to do something, but the chances of it happening are probably quite low. But hey, that's never stopped an executive trying to make money before, so let's see what happens. I'd love you guys to get into the comments though and tell me, if J. Mike Krasinski doing a Babylon 5 complete remake, reboot, I think he called it a boots up sort of remake, would that be something you'd support? Would that be something you'd get behind? Or actually, if you just thought, hey, if they just brought in somebody new and had a real reimagining of this, and it's just basically Babylon 5 by name only, but a new show, could that work? It doesn't traditionally. But, hey, they get the right person, you never know. Get into the comments though and tell me exactly what you think about this possibility. Or is this just a rumour coming from out of Warner Brothers because they may be trying to figure out how to make money on this, but with no real confidence? That's where I'm leaning. So guys, please get into the comments and tell me exactly what you think. If you are new to the channel, don't forget to like, subscribe and hit the bell notification. It really helps us out and you'll never miss any of our new videos. Also, you can become a member of the channel, and that way you get to see videos before everybody else. So check that out. Please stay safe, and I'll see you next time.
Our tachyon pulse has been unable to completely penetrate the anomaly.